Good morning. How are you doing? I don't know where you live, uh, but here in the north of the UK, we've been enjoying some very warm weather. It's been incredibly hot on some days, actually. It starts off quite cool and quite hazy, and the temperature just ramps up in the afternoon. And when the weather's nice like this, it's good to get out. It's good to get outside and not just constantly be doing admin on the computer, making things, being organised, marketing, things like that. It's just nice to get out and enjoy the weather while we have it, because we are now almost in mid-December and these nice days are going to be fewer and further between. Um, I wanted to talk today just briefly about, let me just move that around a bit, about working in isolation, because recently I've had the opportunity to spend a week away from home. I've met new people, I've gained some new perspectives, heard some different opinions, mixed with people who I would never have met in normal life. And it's, although they're not connected to what I do for work, they're not crafters, they're not business owners, uh, just having that human contact is really important. I work from home all the time. I am a self-employed business of one, so I have no work colleagues. So unless I decide to join a call on, say, Eventbrite on Zoom, or I choose to go to a networking meeting over in Manchester, there aren't really any opportunities for me to have proper human contact. And I suppose you could say that a Zoom call isn't proper human contact, but it is real time and they are real people. It's not a pre-recorded thing. And just having those different perspectives is really helpful. It's just uplifting to know what's going on in the world, because staying creative when you live and work in a bubble, when you're on your own, when you don't even have, say, a partner coming home at the end of the day that you can chat to and get different perspective on and just think outside the box, can make your creativity and your enthusiasm and your inspiration wane quite a lot. I, although I really love working from home and I love my own space and I'm quite happy with my own company, I realise that living like that isn't always good for my enthusiasm for my business. I'm not very enthusiastic about things like social media and marketing, and I need quite a push to get me interested in that sort of thing and get me enthusiastic. I'm trying to focus on a couple of things at the moment. Etsy is really down at the moment, business is very slow. I'm still working on a few things, and I've been trying to get focused on one thing in particular, which is building up my Pinterest referrals. Because I've had a Pinterest account for a long time, but I'm not really good at posting to it. In fact, sometimes for months and months on end, I completely neglect it. So I have a lot of pins on there, but I'm often not uploading new stuff. And I keep hearing that Pinterest is one of the few social media platforms where you can actually gain some traction, because social media is just so saturated right now. It's really hard to get noticed on Etsy because there are so many people on there now and there's so much competition, less footfall because of the cost of living crisis and because of the way Etsy controls its own website. YouTube is ticking over. It's not producing, thousands of views, but it's consistent. And it takes time for these things to work. So it can take a year for a website to get traction on Google. It can take as long for any social media platform to recognize you. But you still have to be consistent. So you might have to push away at loading pins on your Pinterest or uploads to your Instagram for a year before you start to get any traction. And that's a long time to remain inspired by something that's not giving you any results. Social media online is no longer a quick hit. it doesn't produce the results fast because there are so many people using these sites and so many people doing similar things to me. So it's very hard to work out what actually works. I think that in normal times, so when we're not under the economic pressure we are under now as a country, and I know this is a worldwide thing as well, that everything is artificially lower than it would have been. So I've taken a stance that I'm not going to put myself under a lot of pressure to do tons of marketing, tons of social media. I've taken myself away from Instagram again. I only load posts like this, the longer posts, to my business Facebook, which gets a little bit of traffic, but it's not making really much difference. I'm more interested in focusing on YouTube, uploading the products, but also doing things like this, because the person behind the business is at least as important as the products that you're selling. So it's a challenge, and that isolation, that kind of living in that bubble makes things extra hard. So if you're struggling to remain motivated and focused, you feel like you're banging a head against a brick wall because sales are down and you can't seem to change it, don't always assume that it's your fault. Yes, there are lots of businesses who are doing well, but a lot of them will be very established. They'll be in niche industries where they have a continuous, their customers continuously need them. I don't make needs, I make wants. I make treats and gifts, slightly higher end fashion. It's not premium, it's not luxury, but it's not Primark price, it's not fast fashion, and I never wanted it to be, and I won't budge on my prices. But gifting season will be upon us before we know it, and hopefully that'll improve a few things. We'll just have to see what happens. Most importantly for me has been finding alternative sources of income. All I need to do is fill the gap. At the moment, I'm not bothered where the money comes from as long as I'm making the money, because I have bills to pay like everybody else. And I'm not talking about profit margins here, I'm just talking about paying the bills, keeping a roof over my head, food on the table, etc., etc. So don't always feel like your lack of motivation is just because of the way you live. But if you feel that the amount of isolation you have is impacting your business, think of ways that you can change that. For me, it's not necessarily about mixing with other crafters or anything that's just work involved. It can simply be going down the high street, running a few errands, chatting with someone in the queue or over a counter in a shop. And that's just all the human interaction sometimes that you need to give you perspective and remind you that the world is still out there. If you really think it's a problem, find other work that gets you into more contact with people. I've recently taken on 2 new income streams. Both of them involve people. One of them is a very part-time, flexible, but weekly based work routine. I've joined an agency, and although I don't get a lot of people contact from it, I do see people at this particular place every so often, and it's forcing me to follow someone else's routine, because sometimes when you work for yourself and if business is down and you don't have any other commitments, not sticking to any kind of routine or having anyone to answer to can also be problematic. So I've taken this on because it means that every week I have to do X amount of hours for somebody else doing another job, and I get cash into my bank account. So that's good money. The other thing is much more spaced out. It's something that hopefully I can do every 3 months, but it also involves a lot of people contact, a little bit of travelling, and often it will involve me being away from home for perhaps a week, perhaps even as long as 20 days at a time. It pays good money and it really gets me out of my comfort zone. I've recently completed my first instance of this, and it took a couple of days to reorientate when I was there because the routine was very different. Lots of people, bright lights, lots of social mixing, and it took me a couple of days to settle into it because I'm just not used to it. But that was really helpful because it really got me out of my bubble. I met new people, one or two have become friends. I got lots of different perspectives on how things are going, people in very different walks of life who are seeing similar struggles just with work or just with making ends meet. And it's just nice to have those conversations. So just think about how you can just ramp up your routine a little bit. Just change things around, mix things up, just to keep you on your toes. It can make a real difference to your your perspective and your mental health, and just feeling like you're not the only one out there. So I hope this has been useful. I wanted to keep this fairly short, but I have now talked for 11 minutes, so it's not been that short. But I hope this has been helpful. You're not alone. If you are a business of one, if you're quite isolated, even if you enjoy that isolation, do keep perspective on it. Make sure that you're not getting into too much of a trap of your own making, because that will be detrimental to you and very probably to your business. So I hope this has been useful. Thank you for watching. Do like and subscribe. There will be some links and things around here, and you can go and find out some of the other things that I'm actually talking about at the moment. So thanks for your time. Bye bye for now.